guys. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today, I want to get into annuities. Right. So, annuities is a financial math topic. It's for grade 12s. Right. Okay, cool. So, when we speak about annuities, we speak about fixed payments paid in fixed intervals of time. Fixed payments paid in fixed intervals of time. For example, paying a loan, or rather, paying 1,000 rands to a loan every month. So notice that we have a fixed amount, which is our 1,000 rands, and we're paying it in fixed intervals of time, which is every month. So when you encounter a situation where you're paying a fixed amount of money at fixed intervals of time, that is an annuity. Now there's two types of annuities. The first one is called the present value annuity. Present value annuity. And the second one is called the future value annuity. Future value annuity. The difference between these two annuities is that one is used for loans and the other one is used for investments. So the present value annuity is used for loans, it's used for withdrawals, it's used for outstanding balances on the loan, outstanding balance of a loan. While on the other hand, a future value annuity is used for savings, investments, sinking funds. Right. So the way we differentiate these two annuities is based on whether we are paying fixed amounts at fixed intervals towards a loan or towards a savings or investment. Right. So now these two have different formulas. I'm going to first start off with the future value formula. The future value formula has three formulas. Now these three formulas depend on the question you're given, right? It depends on the scenario that you're given. The first one is FV equals to X 1 plus I to the power of N minus 1. This is all over I. Okay, cool. Now your FV is your future value, which is what your investment is after you save for that particular months or particular years. And then your X is your fixed payment. What are you paying in that fixed period? These are your fixed payments. It could be that you're paying 1,000 every month. So that 1,000 rands is your fixed payment. And then you have I over here. This is your interest rate. It's always a percentage. And then it could be compounded monthly, it could be compounded semi-annually, it could be compounded quarterly, right? It could have a compounding period, just like how we mentioned the compounding period in the previous one, in the previous video. And then we have n over here. N is the number of payments. N is the number of payments, right? It's usually the number of years multiplied by the compounding period, right? And then also, super important, and then also your interest rate, you're also going to say it's your interest percentage, your I, as a percentage, and then divide by the compounding period. Also consider this. Right, you're gonna, if it's given to you as 13%, you're gonna say 13%, and if they say that it's compounded monthly, you're gonna divide it by 12. So it's gonna be 13% over 12. That is your I. Right. So this is your future value formula. When you're just investing your amount for a particular time, and then you use this particular formula over here. Now, there's a variation to that formula. There's a variation to this formula. Now, the first variation is when we use it in this manner, fv equals to x into 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1, all divided by I. And then we multiply this by 1 plus I to the power of m. Right, so the only difference is this portion over here. What is this portion, and what type of scenario can I use this formula in? This particular formula is when you make your final payment, right? You make your final payment, but leave the investment to gain interest for some time without making any further payment. Without making further payments. Further payments. So this is a scenario where you make final payment but leave the investment to gain interest without making any further payments. So now let's just say you made 30 payments, right? Which means that your N is going to be 30 because that's the number of payments you've made. But then you leave the money to idle in the account for some time. So M represents the period without making any further payment. It's the period without making any further payments. So if you leave your money in the account, I hope it's visible. This is the period without making any further payments. That's your M in this particular case. So if you make 30 payments and then you leave it for 3 months, your M is going to be 3. If you make 30 payments and you leave it for 2 quarters, right? If interest is paid quarterly, you leave it for 2 quarters, you're going to put 2 there on M. So this is a scenario where you make your final payment and make no further payments, but the investment is still in the account. It's still gaining interest. Okay, that is the second scenario. That's a second scenario. The first scenario is just the ordinary future value. The second one is when there is money left in the account, but then there's no further payments being made. Now let's go to the third one. The third one is the future value equals to x 1 plus I to the power of n plus 1 minus 1 all over I. Notice that this one over here, instead of just n, we have an n plus 1. Meaning that you have an extra payment. This is the scenario where you have an extra payment. Oh, not extra. Extra payment. An extra payment. Write it well. Extra payment. So what type of scenario is this? Is the scenario where, for instance, Dinero is saving for a new laptop. This is the example. She makes her first payment immediately. First payment immediately. And continues to make payments at the end of each month. Continues to make payments at the end of each month. So now here's the thing. So now the first thing is that Dinero is making her first payment immediately. Let's just say today, right? Hypothetically, today is the 3rd of March. It's the 3rd of March. And then Dinero is making her first payment today. That's the first payment. And then she continues to make payments at the end of each month. At the end of each month. Implying that her second payment is going to be at the end of March, which is the 31st of March. That's her second payment. Her third payment is going to be on the 31st of April. Third payment. Now I want you to notice something. In March, Dinero made two payments. The one that she made immediately and the one she made at the end of March. So for that particular month, there's two payments. That is why we call it an extra payment. Because in 1 month, there is an extra payment that is made. Two payments being made. That's why we have an n+1 over here. So this is the formula you use when you have an extra payment. All right. Now let's head over to present value. We're done with future value and the varying formulas it has. Let's now delve into the present value annuity. Remember, the present value annuity is used for loans, withdrawals, and outstanding balances. But then because it's a loan, we're dealing with a loan, there's a lot of other things that also apply. First and foremost, let's have a look at the formula for the present value. Present value formula is PV equals to X 1 minus 1 plus I to the power of minus N all over I. That is your present value formula. So P over here is your loan amount. P is your loan amount. And then X, remember the loan amount is what you borrowed. Then X is your fixed payments. X is your fixed payments. And then I is your interest rate. I is your interest rate. Remember, it's a percentage. Always write it as a percentage. And then it could be compounding. Remember? So implying that you're going to have to divide it by the compounding period. Always divided by the compounding period. Then N over here. N is the number of payments. N is the number of payments. Right, so that is the present value formula over here. Now, when it comes to withdrawals, right? So X would be your withdrawals. X could also be your withdrawals, your withdrawal amount. Right. And then N over here would be your number of withdrawals. This is when we're using the future present value for withdrawals. This is when we're using the present value for withdrawals. Your I is your interest rate, of course. Okay, cool. Now let's head over to when we use it as the balance on the loan, right? Balance on the loan. Speak firstly about what the balance on the loan is. The balance on the loan, or rather the outstanding balance. Outstanding balance. This is the amount that you still need to pay after making a certain amount of payments. Right. For example, so I made a loan, right? Dinero was granted a loan of 1,000 rands, and she is supposed to pay 300 rands for a year every month. Dinero pays for the first 7 months. What is the balance on her loan? Or what is the outstanding balance? So now, here's the thing when you use the present value for balance on the loan. Instead of PV, we're going to use B. B standing for balance on the loan. So it's going to be X into 1 minus 1 plus I to the power of minus N. Close the bracket, all over I. So now, X over here is your fixed payments. These are your fixed payments, while I over here is your interest rate. Right? It could be compounded, however number of times. And then N over here, for N is very important. These are number of payments not yet made. Not yet paid or made. Number of payments not yet made. So notice that Dinero paid for the first 7 months, and she's supposed to pay for a whole year, which is 12 months, but she's only paid for the first 7 months. How many months is she left with? She's left with 5 months. So over on N over here, N, you're gonna put minus 5. There's a minus over here already, so it's gonna be you're just gonna include the N as 5, but then it's gonna appear as minus 5 then. So because N is the number of payments not yet made when you are using the present value for the balance on the loan. Okay, cool. Now, this is super interesting because it also introduces us to what we call deferred payments. Deferred payments are missed payments, basically. Deferred payments, aka missed payments. Missed payments. So these are payments that actually this person cannot make. Unfortunately, something happened. They lost their job, and then now they can't continue paying their loan. So now a deferred payment or missed payments happens at 2 places. It can happen at the beginning, or it can happen in the middle. Right. So at the beginning, Remember, once you miss payments, your loan doesn't just stay as it was, it becomes a different kind of value. What do I mean by that? The bank will not just let your loan just remain as it is while you're not paying. The loan amount is going to increase because you're not paying it and interest is being gained on that loan. So now, in this particular case, for us to find the new loan amount, after you missed payments at the beginning, we're going to take the loan amount that you borrowed, the PV, and run it in a compound interest, right? So in this case, our PV, or rather this is the new loan amount. Seeing that I said loan. I don't know where my obsession with M came from. New loan amount. This is the new loan amount. And PV is your previous loan amount. Previous loan amount is your PV. Your I is your interest rate. Your I is your interest rate. And then remember, it could be compounded. Right? There's a percentage that is compounded. And your N is your number of missed payments. Is your number of missed payments. So this is when you use when you have missed payments at the beginning. Your new loan amount would be that loan amount running through compound interest for a particular number of missed payments. Now, this can also happen in the middle of paying the loan. Remember, you made a loan, you bought a house, or perhaps you bought a car, and then things were going great. You were paying, everything was nice, and then you lose your job. The loan still needs to be paid, right? So, but then if you miss payments, the loan will not just sit at the bank and not accumulate interest. It will accumulate interest, and then when you come back, you have to pay the new loan amount. You can't just pay the previous one that you just had. No, 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 no. But then when you pay it in the middle, when you want the new loan amount when you missed payments in the middle, you're going to say the balance on the loan. Remember, you were making payments, right? You were making payments, and then in the middle, something happened, and you can no longer make payments, but you were making payments. So the loan, you were decreasing the loan, basically. But then something happened, and then you couldn't pay anymore. So you're going to want the balance on the loan after making those payments that you have made, and then run it through the compound interest, right? So now this is your balance on the loan. Remember, the balance on the loan, because you are making payments, the balance on the loan is x 1 minus 1 plus I to the power of minus n all over I. So this n over here will be the number of payments you have already made, or rather, which is the number of payments you are left with. Because when we use the not yet made, right, up until that point, you start missing payments. These are the number of payments not yet made until that point where you start missing payments. This is our B. Our I, of course, is our interest rate. I is the interest rate. And then N over here is your missed payments. Remember, this is a missed payments question, but then in the middle. So you first want the balance on the loan, right? Considering that you've made a certain number of payments, you want the balance on the loan. Your N is going to be the number of payments not yet made over on the balance on the loan equation. And then your N, although, is going to be the missed payments that you haven't yet made, right? Or that you missed. So this is the situation where you have a missed payment situation or a deferred payment situation. Right. So now let's go over to the last payment. The last payment is sort of like a missed payment, but then of course in terms of the calculation, but then in terms of what they mean, it's a whole totally different thing. So last payment is the last payment. It's self-explanatory. It's the last payment that you make, basically, right? So what you're going to say is that the last payment, the formula for it is going to be the balance on the loan. Then you're going to run your balance on the loan for only one. Over there at the top, your N is going to be 1, right? It's always going to be the case. So your balance on the loan over here is going to be x into 1 minus 1 plus I to the power of minus n all over I. Okay, cool. So now, of course, your x is your monthly payments, or rather your fixed payments. Your fixed payments. Your I is your interest rate. Your n, these are number of payments not yet made. But then when we're looking for the last payment, number of whole payments, whole number payments not yet made. Number of payments not yet made. Look out for the questions that I'll be doing just after this particular topic, and then you'll see how, in terms of how they are used in questions, how they'll be. All right. Thank you so much, guys.